What is going on, Lions fans? I want to come to you with something that has been on my mind for the last couple of days. There are some free agents out there that could be of use to our Detroit Lions. Let's talk about it. All right, now free agency is about 2 weeks in, and I have been doing some thinking about are there any more moves that the Lions can make? Our Lions have been relatively quiet during free agency. There was the Carlton Davis trade. I will count that as a free agent move. There was a Mick Robertson, the corner who we took. There was the re-signing of some of our own players, and then there was the DJ Reader signing, which to me was a huge signing. We needed a big defensive tackle in the middle of that line to go along with the edge rushers because we all know that one of the good ways to keep a to actually help generate a pass rush, excuse me, is what I was trying to say, is that you also need a D tackle in the middle who can actually collapse the line. If you were watching the Chiefs in the I'm scared not in the Super Bowl, in the AFC Championship, you would notice that one of the reasons they were able to keep Lamar Jackson at bay and not let him run all over the place is because they had Chris Jones and the other D tackle whose name slips my mind right now, crashing the middle of the line, keeping it to where he really almost had nowhere to run. So that was a huge signing. No, we didn't get the big flashy free agent signing like a lot of us wanted, but I think that Brad Holmes, did a decent, quiet job of bringing in some people. But there are still some key free agents out there, and there are five free agents that I see out there that we could sign that I think will be good pickups. And the most important thing is that these would be free agents that I believe that we can get for a relatively cheap price. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the offensive line. Makai Becton is still out there. Now, Makai Becton is an offensive lineman who I have liked for quite a few years. I'm gonna be honest. Ever since I saw him a couple years ago at the combine run under 5 seconds, if I remember, he ran like 4.8 or something like that. For a man that's 365 pounds, that is very impressive. The Jets did not re-sign him. He is still a free agent. He is still out there. 6'7", 364. He's 24 years old. Why do I think this would be a good pickup for the Lions? Due to the fact that he has not been picked up yet, I think that we can get him on the cheap. And I've always seen him as a guard. I think that because of his speed, he would be good on pulls. Remember kind of how Jonah Jackson was for us? I think that a guy like Becton could come right in and do exactly that on the offensive line. I'm not necessarily saying that he would start over Glasgow or Zettler, you know what I'm saying, which I definitely don't think he would start over Kevin, but he could push Glasgow for that spot on the right side. He could be a good right guard, a good fill in, or if nothing else, he could at least sit behind him and learn. And speaking of Zeitler is 33 years old. This kid is 24. Literally, he's still a kid. So I don't think it will hurt anything to bring this kid in and see what he has. The next free agent that I would like to talk about is the next four are all on the defensive side. Another kid who I have liked since he came out of college, Isaiah Simmons. I love this kid when he was at Clemson. He can play inside linebacker. He can play outside linebacker. He can play nickel corner, and he can play free or strong safety. At Clemson, he did all of those things. 6'4", 238 pounds. And if I'm not mistaken, he ran in the 4.3 40 in the combine a couple of years ago. This is another player who I think the Lions can get on the cheap. Now, remember, this kid was a first round pick a couple years ago when the Cardinals took him. The Cardinals traded him pretty much for nothing. If I remember, it was like a seventh round pick to the Giants, and the Giants have not re-signed him. I think that not only would this kid come in and be a good linebacker for the Lions to go right there with Jack Campbell and Anzalone and Barnes, but I think that this is a player that you can bring in on third down. He can absolutely cover tight ends and running backs, and he can even cover receivers. This is another player that I believe is a good value pick. that Brad Holmes could bring in, and you if you bring him in on a 1 year deal, kind of like with Becton, you pretty much have nothing to lose. The next player I want to talk about is corner. Yes, you all know about Cameron Sutton. He was released, and the Lions are still looking for a number one corner. Now, this kid right here is not a number one corner, but if you are looking for a depth pick, Rock Sin has been a pretty good corner. He was pretty good with the Colts. I got to be honest. I don't know exactly how well he played for the Raiders, but I do remember when he was with the Colts, he was a pretty decent player. He's a guy that you can bring in, and if nothing else, he could be a depth pick. He could maybe be good enough to be a number two. I kind of doubt that he replace Carlton Davis, but you just never know. And the reason why I'm saying number two is because I believe that our number one is still in the draft. And if you're thinking, well, can the Lions really get a number one corner in the second or third round? Yes, they can. If you remember a couple of years ago, we got a pretty good corner in the second round who end up being a shutdown corner. So I do believe that excuse me, I'm sorry, not Rocky Sin, but that Brad Holmes can find a corner in the draft who could come in and be that guy. But if you bring Yasin in on a 1 year deal as a depth pick, you don't really have a lot to lose there. The fourth player I like to talk about is a familiar face, Jerry Jacobs. We could bring Jerry Jacobs back due to the fact that he was an undrafted free agent while we had him. The Lions did not resign him. They let him hit the market, and he is still out there on the market. I'm not saying that no one will pick Jacobs up, but I'm saying that if another week or maybe even two go by and nobody has picked up Jacobs, why not pick up the phone, call him, tell him come back home, and tell him that we'll give him an opportunity to fight for the number 3, 4, or 5 spot. He's definitely, in my opinion, a good enough corner that he can play situational. No, Jerry Jacobs was never a number one. He may not even be a number two, but he can come in and I believe give you decent play in the dime. And he's already familiar with Aaron Glenn's defense. This could be a good pick to bring back. And last, I'm going to go to the safety spot. And I'm going to also talk about an old Lion, Condry Diggs. He's back out there. Why would I want the Lions to bring Quadri Diggs in? Because this is kind of how I see the secondary going. I believe that Melifonwu is going to start. I believe that Kirby Joseph will be our other safety, with Brian Branch still playing in the nickel, but also backing up Kirby Joseph. So we let Tracy Walker go. We need to bring in somebody to replace him to be the backup now for Melifonwu. And not to be, and I'm mainly saying this because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson went back to the Eagles. So Condry Diggs, 31 years old, could probably come in at a bargain price just to be a backup for Melifonwu. So that's kind of how I see it, Lions fans. Those are 5 free agents who are out there. I believe the Lions could bring in. They could bring in a few of them, they could bring in a couple of them, and they could absolutely make a difference on this team. If nothing else, they can definitely be good depth picks. So, Lions fans, what do you think? Do you like the guys I put out there? Is there someone out there that maybe I didn't mention that we could bring in? And like I said, at this point, I'm looking at guys that we can bring in as quality picks, guys who can bring in on the cheap, who could come in and make a difference on the team. All right, Lions fans, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We love to talk Lions football with you all and give us your thoughts on it. Other than that, I'm going to get up out of here. Until next time, peace.